Hi, this is Tamara from mooglyblog.com, and in this series of videos, I'm going to be demonstrating how to crochet the Odds Are Shawl, which is a free pattern you'll find in parts on mooglyblog.com. This pattern is being featured as our crochet along of the month for January 2025, again on mooglyblog.com. Please go to the link in the description for the written pattern so you can follow along and make the shawl along with the video. To make this shawl, I used a USK 6.5 millimeter crochet hook. This one is by Susan Bates. We're also using one skein of Caron Colorama Halo Perfect Phasing. As you can see looking at the skein here, the color changes happen within the skein itself, and I have a couple of beautiful examples that I've worked up here. You, of course, should choose whichever colorway you prefer and start stitching right along with us. Again, this is a free pattern on mooglyblog.com, so you can follow along as we go or find the whole thing finished at the end of January 2025. First, let's take a quick look at the finished shawl. Here's the purple one that I made, and you can see here we begin at the short end and it gets wider as we go, working back and forth in rows all the way across to the end of the skein, or well, at least the end of our shawl, and then we can work around to make a border. Here is what the purple one looks like, and you can see it's got some beautiful texture throughout. We use a mix of stitches that really create a lovely look for this shawl. Let me set this one aside and pull up the other colorway. When I put these up on social media, people really seem to love both of these skeins, and I couldn't decide either, so I had to make both of them. You can see here we've got this really beautiful rust color down here at the end, working through lightening up into the gray, and then of course the gray takes us around for our border on this one as well. So let's go ahead and get started making the Odds Are shawl. So when it's time to begin your shawl, you can start by pulling from the center or from the outside. It just depends what color you want to have at the small point versus the large point. I'm going to go ahead and pull from the center. To begin our shawl, we go ahead and put a slip knot on our hook. We don't need to leave anything for any functional length to do anything with, so we can just leave whatever we like there to go ahead and weave in. And then we're going to start by chaining one, like so. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work a stitch called the chainless starting double crochet right into that chain we just made. So to do that, I pull up the loop on my hook to about the height of a double crochet. Then I'm going to secure the top of that loop with my finger on top of my hook like so. Then I will yarn over with the loop of the hook itself, and then insert my hook right into that first chain we made. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Let me get that through there. It wants to be a little twisted. There it goes. So now you'll notice I still haven't let go of the top of that loop with my finger. So now I'm going to yarn over and pull through two, by which I mean really behind that yarn over. And then to finish our stitch, I can yarn over again, release the top of that loop, and pull through two. So now this is the first stitch of this row, and I'd like to put a stitch marker in it. Here's a crochet stitch marker, and I'm going to put it right in the top of that first stitch. I'll reinsert my hook, and then if we go back to our instructions, you'll see we're to add 2 more double crochets to that same chain. So we just yarn over and put 2 double crochets right in that same first chain we made. Now there are lots of ways I could have chosen to start this shawl, but I decided to do it this way because this way when we go to put our border around the shawl, we know that this won't have tightened up. So don't pull down on this. Don't let this first chain here tighten up. When we come back around to work our border, being able to work into there will make it a whole lot easier. But with that and those 3 stitches made, we have finished row 1. And now we're ready for row 2. We'll go ahead and turn, and we're going to work a chainless starting double crochet and another double crochet right into the first stitch. So just as we did before, pull it up to the height of a double crochet, yarn over with the loop itself, go into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through that stitch and behind the yarn over, and then finally yarn over and pull through 2 to finish this stitch. Now this is the first stitch of this row, so I'll put a stitch marker in this one as well. There we go. Then pull that loop back down here, double crochet again in that same first stitch. There we go, like so. Then we're going to double crochet in the next stitch. And now we're going to leave that very last stitch completely unworked. We're only going to put 3 stitches in this one again. So this one is going to have sort of an interesting shape to it. We're going to be skipping that last stitch on every other row. So if you have a lot of stitch markers, you can go ahead and sort of leave that stitch marker in the stitch. But if you only have a few stitch markers, you can go ahead and take that one out and reuse it as we go throughout. However, this is what it should look like right here. There we go, at the end of row 2. Now we're ready for row 3. So we'll turn our work and start again with our chainless starting double crochet. If you would prefer to avoid using this stitch, if you don't like it or you just aren't getting the hang of it, that's perfectly fine. You can use a chain 3 double crochet substitute instead, or a different double crochet substitute of your choice. It's completely up to you. Now, we probably don't really need to mark this particular one, but I do like to mark it and just move that stitch marker up as I go. I find it makes it a little easier as I work back and forth in rows to keep track of my progress. So I've worked a chainless starting double crochet in that first stitch, then I will double crochet in the next stitch, like so. And then in the last stitch, we're going to work 3 double crochets. So all of them go right into that last stitch, and if you need to move that stitch marker out of the way, we can certainly do so. So there's 1 and 2. Pull up some more yarn here. We want to control the tension with our hands, not by pulling out of the skein while we're working here. There we go. So I can finish that stitch. There's 2 and 1 more, like so. So now in row 3, we have a total of 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're ready for row 4. So we turn our work and start again with a chainless starting double crochet in that first stitch. There we go. And I'll go ahead and mark that first stitch right there. Straighten out our yarn a little bit and recheck our instructions. We're going to double crochet again in that first stitch. Double crochet in each stitch across until 1 stitch remains and leave that stitch unworked. So we had 2 stitches in the first stitch, then we continue to double crochet across. But now we want to make sure that we don't put 1 in the marked stitch. And that's why I say I like to mark that stitch. Even though we're not going to work back into it, it still lets me know, hey, we've reached the end, don't work into that one. We always want to leave, when we're going this direction on our shawl, that last stitch unworked. By leaving that last stitch unworked and really loading all our increases over here, so this side is decreasing, this side is increasing, we're going to create that beautiful crescent shape. So this is what it should look like when you've finished row 4. So now we can turn and make row 5. We start again with a chainless starting double crochet, like so. And then we simply double crochet across until 1 stitch remains. So let's work our way across here, double crochet in each stitch until we get to that last one, which is going to be marked for us, which makes it really easy. Of course, I forgot to mark the first one in this row, didn't I? We've got that last row, or that last stitch there. Let's take a moment, grab that stitch marker and move it on up. We forgot to put it in that first stitch of this row. There we go. Now we've got where there's just 1 stitch remaining on this row, so we put 3 double crochets in this stitch. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. And now, of course, I can move that stitch marker right on out of the way and pull up a little bit more yarn to get us ready for our next row. But this is what it looks like at the end of row 5. And rows 4 and 5 are our repeat for section 1. We want to continue working 11 rows for section 1, but we're just going to be repeating rows 4 and 5 over and over again. So 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5 until you've made a total of 11 rows. So at the end of section 1, when you've finished rows 1 through 11, this is what your piece should look like. In section 2, we start our section with crossed stitches. So after row 11, we turn and we're ready for row 12. we start again with a chainless starting double crochet or whatever your favorite double crochet substitute is. There are quite a few out there, so if there's a different one you prefer, you can use that as well. I'm going to once again mark the first stitch of my row. There we go. And then going back to our instructions, I now double crochet in the next stitch, like so, and then double crochet in the same stitch as the first stitch. We're going to come back here and cross in front of the stitch we just made. Now, when we do that, we don't want to enclose this stitch inside the stitch we're making, so we want to make sure to work in front of it. So we yarn over, go back into that first stitch, and then what I like to do is sort of push everything else out of the way there so that I can just yarn over and pull my loop up through that stitch. And that other stitch that we just made previously, that previous double crochet, is just pushed right out of the way. My fingers back on there. There we go. We can make that double crochet. And now you can see they have made a little bit of an X there. The second one is in front of the stitch behind it. Let's do that a few more times. So continuing across this row, next we want to skip the next unworked stitch. So this is the part starting with the asterisk if you're following along with written pattern. So we skip the next unworked stitch and double crochet in the stitch after that. Then we double crochet in the stitch we just skipped. Again, we want to make sure to work in front of the other one. So I like to go into that stitch and just push that other double crochet right out of the way. Make this double crochet, and the other one will pop right up where it's supposed to be. That is our repeat across. Skip the next unworked stitch, work in the stitch after that with a double crochet, then double crochet in the stitch we just skipped. And we'll keep doing this all the way across until we get to the end, leaving that very last stitch unworked. So let's do a couple more together. Skip the next stitch, double crochet in the stitch after that, then double crochet in the stitch you just skipped. Now, if you're someone who wants to try playing around with a little bit, you could try enclosing the previous stitch inside your stitch, but it's up to you. If you like the look of it better, you can do it that way. But for an X stitch or a crossed stitch, we want to try and work those two stitches separately. There we are. So you can kind of see there the beautiful texture that this is starting to create. This is a fuzzy yarn, so it doesn't show it quite as clearly as some other yarns might, but I think altogether it creates a really lovely effect once we've got a field of these going. So now let's look at our stitches. You can see there's only 3 stitches left because we worked into that one. So there's 1, 2, 3. We know that last one's going to be unworked. So we go skip the next stitch. This is going to be our last repeat. Double crochet in the next stitch, then double crochet in the stitch we just skipped. And we leave that last stitch unworked, so now we're done with row 12. Now we turn and we're ready for row 13. Row 13 is going to be another row worked in this direction, a lot like the rows we've been doing before. We start with a chainless starting double crochet or double crochet substitute in that first stitch. And of course, we can move that stitch marker right up from the previous unworked stitch down there to this guy. And then we are going to double crochet across until 1 stitch remains. Now, don't try and overthink, which stitch you worked in what order if they're crossed right here. Just follow right along with the line of V's on top. Work these stitches in the usual order as they present right here at the top of the stitch. Don't worry about where they were worked into the row below. We just want to double crochet straight across for row 13 and for all the odd numbered rows of this section until we get to that very last stitch. And you can see here, it really starts to add up quickly. We only had 3 stitches in that first row, but it is growing quite quickly into that beautiful crescent shape. So we've got just a couple more stitches here before we get to that last one, which I've got marked. Makes it super easy to see right where I am. There we are. So now you can see we've got that one last marked stitch left. So for this stitch, we want to work 3 double crochets right into that last stitch. So 1 and 2 and 3. There we go. And then, oh, split my yarn just a little bit there. Let me make that last one again. I always like my stitches to look nice and put together. There we are. All right, so now I can go ahead and move that stitch marker out of the way, and that is what it looks like after row 13. So now for section 2, we just repeat rows 12 and 13 over and over again until we have a total of 41 rows. So this is what your shawl should look like at the end of section 2. You can see I've got my tail end here, and now we have worked all the way through row 41. So now we're ready for section 3. Don't forget to check the description for the link to the written pattern, or go to your favorite search engine and simply type in Moogly Odds Are Shawl, and it's likely to pop right up. Again, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.